ever walked away from a conversation thinking, that's not what I meant at all, or how did this turn into an argument? Communication seems simple. We talk, others listen, they respond. But in reality, communication is one of the most psychologically complex things we do every single day. And often what blocks effective communication isn't language itself. It's the invisible psychological barriers operating beneath the surface. Today, we're diving into psychological barriers in communication, what they are, why they happen, and how they silently shape our relationships, workplaces, and even our sense of self. Let's start with perception. Every person experiences the world through a unique mental filter, shaped by upbringing, culture, past experiences, and beliefs. When two people talk, it's not just two voices interacting, it's two entire psychological histories colliding. We assume we're discussing the same reality, but often we're not. If someone says, "You're late," one person may hear a neutral observation, while the other hears criticism, rejection, or disrespect. The words are the same, the meaning is not. This happens because our brains don't just receive information, they interpret it. We fill in gaps, we make assumptions, we predict intentions, and most of the time we're not even aware we're doing it. This automatic interpretation creates one of the most common psychological barriers: projection. Projection occurs when we attribute our own thoughts, feelings, or insecurities to someone else. For example, if I'm insecure about my performance at work, I may interpret neutral feedback as an attack. I'm not reacting to what was said, I'm reacting to what I fear. Another powerful barrier is emotional state. When we're stressed, anxious, angry, or exhausted, our ability to process information objectively decreases. Neuroscience shows that strong emotions activate survival-based brain systems. When that happens, we shift from understanding to defending. Instead of listening to comprehend, we listen to respond. Instead of curiosity, we default to protection. And once defensiveness enters a conversation, connection usually exits. Ego is another subtle but influential barrier. Communication requires vulnerability and the willingness to admit we might be wrong, that we don't fully understand, or that we've made a mistake. But ego resists this. Ego wants to be right. Ego wants control. Ego equates disagreement with threat. So rather than exploring another perspective, we double down on our own. Conversations become competitions instead of collaborations. Closely connected to ego is confirmation bias, our tendency to search for, interpret, and remember information that confirms what we already believe. If I believe someone is careless, I will notice every small mistake they make and ignore evidence of responsibility. Over time, this creates rigid narratives about people. We stop seeing them as dynamic individuals and start seeing them as fixed categories. And once we categorize someone, real communication becomes almost impossible. Fear is another major psychological barrier. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of conflict. Many people don't say what they truly think or feel because they anticipate negative consequences. This leads to indirect communication, passive aggression, or complete withdrawal. On the surface, everything looks calm. Underneath, resentment grows. Ironically, avoiding short-term discomfort often creates long-term disconnection. There's also the barrier of assumptions. We constantly assume others understand our intentions, our tone, our priorities. But mind reading is not a human skill. When we fail to clarify expectations or feelings, we create space for misunderstanding. For example, saying, "it's fine," can mean at least 5 different things depending on tone and context. Without clarity, the listener fills in the blanks, and they may fill them incorrectly. Cultural conditioning plays a massive role as well. Communication norms differ across families, communities, and societies. In some cultures, directness is valued. In others, harmony and subtlety are prioritized. A direct communicator may be perceived as rude, while an indirect communicator may be seen as evasive. Neither is inherently wrong. They're simply operating from different psychological frameworks. But without awareness, these differences easily turn into friction. Another barrier that often goes unnoticed is selective listening. We hear what matters to us and tune out the rest. If someone is explaining a complex issue, we may focus on one sentence that triggers us and ignore the broader message. This selective attention distorts the conversation. We respond to fragments rather than the whole. Also talk about trauma and past experiences. If someone has been criticized frequently in the past, they may interpret even gentle suggestions as attacks. If someone grew up in an environment where conflict led to punishment or withdrawal of love, they may avoid difficult conversations entirely. Our nervous systems remember what our conscious minds try to forget. Communication doesn't just happen in the present, it activates the past. Power dynamics add another layer. When there's a perceived imbalance, whether in the workplace, a relationship, or a social setting, people often filter their words carefully. They may suppress disagreement or exaggerate agreement. This reduces authenticity and creates surface-level communication rather than genuine dialogue. Real understanding requires psychological safety, the feeling that you can speak honestly without fear of humiliation or retaliation. Then there's language itself. Words are abstract symbols. They rarely capture the full complexity of what we feel. Emotions are nuanced, layered, and sometimes contradictory, but language forces us to compress them into simplified statements. I'm upset might actually mean I feel overlooked, disappointed, and unsure how to express it. This compression creates gaps between experience and expression. If this helped you, consider subscribing.